Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1237 of our daily content grind, and today I'm going to put some respect where respect deserves to be put. We're going to give a little bit of a shout out today to Transformers Cyberverse, a show that I feel is genuinely underrated, and the people who watched, you know it, right? But I know there's also a lot of people who skipped on this show for a lot of reasons, and you know what? I don't blame you for skipping out on it. Oh, it's using the evergreen designs. It's not using any major voice actors. It's only 11 minutes per episode. Okay, I can understand where you might be suspicious of the quality of this show and exactly what it is doing. However, I was in that same boat. When this show first came out, I completely dismissed it because I was just expecting schlock for kids that really would not do anything for me as an adult fan. And to be fair, there are plenty of adult fans who this is not going to appeal to. You're not going to get anything out of it, story, character-wise, etc. It's just going to be, particular cup of tea for certain people. But you know what? For those people, that is a delicious cup of tea. So I'm going to give it the respect it deserves. We're going to talk about some of the bright points and some of the things that stood out for me about the show itself. And really, that 11-minute runtime really is one of them. You wouldn't think they could get a full story into half of an episode, but they actually do a pretty good job of that. The show is very briskly paced, but still manages to tell stories within it, which is a really tricky thing to do. Back in the 90s, there were cartoons that could manage that, but they were usually comedic. A lot of the Warner Brothers cartoons out of the 90s were 11 minutes at a time. They told stories between commercial breaks. But this actually managed to pull it off and tell actual Transformer stories, little mini adventures, but also a few things that were much more episodic. Or serialized, rather. They do I was suspect, but because of the way it's broken up, it actually does make it go pretty quick. If you binge this series, it kind of flies by because it is paced specifically for that. Frankly, it's a really good Transformer show for the TikTok generation. I'll put it to you that way. Let's get into some of the particulars, though. Do you want a show that has some really good reimaginings of established characters? Cyberverse's iteration of Hot Rod comes across the way you would expect a Hot Rod at first. However, circumstances in the show actually do force him to grow up considerably. Now, I will admit, I'm probably not going to be able to detail a lot of why I like this show without actually spoiling it. So at this point, I am going to advise you, if you actually do want to try this show out for yourself, if you have not given this show a chance, please tune out now and go watch it before coming back to this episode, because frankly, it's worth it. It is worth a watch. I will tell you that right now. But for those who just want to stick around, for those who just want to hear my thoughts, I really like this iteration of Hot Rod. He goes through the maturation process better than G1 Hot Rod. He doesn't have the Optimus Prime guilt hanging over his head, for starters. But also, because of the Quintesson situation in this series, he goes from the turbo revving young punk to an actual capable leader. You actually see the character growth happening in him because he is kind of thrust into it. And he manages to do it without Optimus Prime dying, without a Matrix. You don't have the whole Chosen One thing over him. He just steps up because he's the only Autobot left in the situation, and someone has to step up. And that's exactly what he does. And it's a fantastic take on Hot Rod. What I really like is the bromance he has with what might be one of my favorite editions of Soundwave of all time. He takes everything that makes the original Soundwaves good, and I mean that by the vintage cartoon Soundwave and even the Marvel Comics Soundwave. He actually has a personality of his own. There's enough of the cartoon Soundwave expectation in there, but he's not cold. He has personality, he has attitude, he has some flair to him. You know, he is a fun character to watch. But and he manages to maintain the menace of Soundwave. But again, Quintesson invasion, he has to work with the Autobots and actually makes really good friends with Hot Rod for a while. It's super weird. It's super cool to see the two together because you would not expect it, but the writers pull it off really, really well. You get to see a relationship with Laserbeak that's different from standard Transformer tellings, which that part is pretty cool. Just the character himself is just exceptionally well done. It doesn't feel like a Soundwave I had seen before, but pieces of these previous ones, G1, Marvel, maybe a dash, just a dash of Prime. And it all blends together into this amazing concoction of Soundwave, and I love it. I almost included Trypticon on my top 10 Dino Transformers, and it is based on his appearance in Cyberverse that he would have made it in. G1, okay, he's a big, dumb brute that follows pretty much any order he's given, whether that is from Galvatron and the Constructicons, or just Octane. I guess Octane will do too. So Trypticon doesn't really have much character before this, except like some IDW. And again, IDW Trypticon actually pretty good and different. Again, if it was the same reason for both of them, if they had more screen time, I would have considered them for that list. But this one comes across kind of like he's a little mob boss and a little used car salesman at the same time. Like he's very silver-tongued about how he takes care of his mercenaries, because he is the leader of the mercenaries in this universe. This is a Trypticon who is smart, who is savvy, who is silver-tongued. It is weird. It's very, very weird to see like a smart, capable Trypticon. But you know what? It's kind of fun too. Like you don't normally see those big Titan characters be given this kind of spotlight. You know, it's a really fascinating choice. And I'm glad they went with it because it turned out fun. Oh, here's one of the dinos that actually did make my list. I love the Girl Swoop. I love the Girl Swoop because someone on the Dinobots needs to be the smart one. I'm very happy it was Swoop. Talked about it in that top 10 video. Go watch that if you have not. We talk about a lot of the popular dinos, and they're not just all Dinobots. But Swoop here, I really think they hit on something really, really cool. I love having just one smart one amongst the Dinobots. Her intelligence does rival even Perceptor's. She's that brilliant. You know, and honestly, as much as I love Swoop, my favorite G1 Dinobot, I will admit, he ends up on the losing end a lot. I think just because of his small size and the fact that he's relying on wings makes him not nearly as physically powerful as the other Dinobots, but the intelligence angle actually makes him counteract that. So, Girl Swoop actually makes up for what the Dinobots lack, which is obviously a lot of intelligence. Now, Grimlock is world savvy and wise. He is smart himself, but I don't think he's scientifically smart the way that Swoop is. So she is absolutely providing something unique to the team and unique to Dinobots in general. And as long as we're talking about Cyberverse Dinobots, they actually produced a Volcanicus I actually don't mind. Probably because there's no proper toy of him to ruin my perception. But it is a cool design. I mean, it's far nicer design than what Power of the Primes came up with. This is one of the reasons I hate combining Dinobots. They very rarely look good. But this one also has some personality to him. Like, he's got this, like, eager young kid thing going on because he's a brand new combiner looking to impress with his skills. So, yeah, the show actually made me like Volcanicus, a topic that I've done an entire video about how much I dislike Volcanicus as a concept. But that kind of brings us into the more obscure characters and how well Cyberverse uses them. Things like Repugnus. I will admit, I went from someone who was just like, meh on Repugnus. I had all three G1 monster bots, and the only one I sold off was Repugnus because it just like, yeah, no, it's this big upright cockroach character. Like, I don't care. This show This show, I have both his one-step changer that I reviewed for the last Toy-Sember. I have the repaint that's two-tone green, love that, and I have all the little mini ones they did too. I really like this one. This Repugnus is really endearing. He's just this cute little gremlin of a robot, and making him like an entire like subspecies that actually worked really, really well. Like, there's a whole infestation of Repugnuses on Cybertron. They're all uniquely named and characterized. It's kind of cool. And we have this weird, like, well, you're all stuck in your alt mode thing, like a Sentinel Prime before Sentinel Prime thing going on. But they get over that. They get over that, thankfully. But no, Repugnus is just a neat character in this show, and he's fun to see. Like, he makes for a very fun little gremlin of a robot. I love him. Here's one I never thought I would see animated. For those unaware, this is Rack and Ruin. Rack and Ruin comes from the Marvel UK run of comics, where he was part of the Wreckers, Simon Furman's favorite way of using all those toys that never made it into the original G1 cartoon. But this one is a completely original design. He was in the original, and he never transformed in the original, because he's two bots fused in the center like Siamese twins. Well, they decided to use him for Cyberverse, and not only does he actually portray a pretty fun character, bit appearances, but fun when he shows up. You know, nothing major to the storyline, but he's there to provide some comic relief and just be an amusing character. In that, he excels. But it also made sure that Rack and Ruin actually got a toy that transforms. There's like a proper Rack and Ruin in existence now, thanks to this show. So for everyone who's been holding on for your Wreckers to get completed, this show is the reason you have a complete Wrecker collection now. You're welcome. They even turned Teletran 1 into a character. Teletran X makes for a really good early season character of a source of knowledge and something to keep the plot moving, but also fun little asides like this unintentional rivalry with Windblade. Maybe not rivalry, but just like he's a little bit antagonistic. And it's one of those things where like an insultive name goes to a term of endearment as they get, get more trusting of each other, that kind of thing. It's a fun character, like surprisingly fun considering it's just supposed to be like their version of Teletran. No one ever turned Teletran into a character, and I don't mean transforming in the mainframe. That's a cheat, and you know it. No, this is Teletran as a character itself, and that is something that's actually never been done, and it's fun. It's a great way of using him. There's ways that this show can turn lemons into lemonade. We talked about Clobber recently, my whole AU fic that includes both Lugnut and Clobber. But in the character's inception, the writers absolutely loved Lugnut's design and wanted to use Lugnut in the show, but they didn't have many females in the cast, so they wanted to gender flip Lugnut. They were told, no, the character has to stay male. So instead, they just made a brand new character using Lugnut's physical shape and colors, but now she's a tank, she's a she, and her name is Clobber, and she is a lot of fun. Clobber is, again, an endearing character. She just wants to do good. She just wants to be useful and basically be told she's done a good job. She doesn't get a lot of that in the Decepticons. This is something that, again, the Quintesson Uprising kicks off. Because, yeah, it makes her come to the forefront as a character. It gives her friends amongst the Autobots, and eventually gives her a place amongst the Autobots. She's just too nice of a gentle giant to stay with the Decepticons for long. It's a really good bit of character development. Like, I really like how Clobber shakes out. And again, one of those characters I would love to see escape. I would love to see Lugnut and Clobber together in a future toy line or a future series of some kind. Probably very unlikely. But the possibility is out there, and I like that possibility. Modern Transformer fiction tends to sprinkle in one of the 13 here and there, and this show chose McAdam. Originally, again, from the Marvel UK comics, McAdam was just a bartender, rumored to be older than the war itself, and yet all he really wants to do is run his tavern where, regardless of Autobot or Decepticon, all is welcome, and as long as you are not fighting. Leave the war at the door, and you are welcome inside. This one maintains very much the same rules, and you actually get to see Autobot and Decepticon intermingling in the show because of the bar. And then there is the plot twist. Yeah, he's Alchemist Prime. He's one of the 13, and he's just kind of chilling out and just pouring drinks for people. It's a kind of a fun way to spend time if you're a god. McAdam is, again, a really, really strong character. He acts as this, he acts as the role you would expect of one of the 13, is this, very wise elder who's going to guide everybody when they really need it, dispensing just the right advice at just the right time, which is very much in line with fictional barkeeps. So he's playing both the god angle and the barkeep angle really, really well. And it's a character that has me looking forward to his toy that's coming out as part of Age of the Primes, because it looks like it's going to be based on him, and I've got the Build-A-Figure. I'd really like a transforming one, please. Though probably not into the monstrosity he was in this show. What he transforms into in this show might scare the DJD. Let's talk about a little bit of the originality this show showed off. For instance, I love Hammer Strike, or Hammer Bite, rather. I'm really upset he was not a rival to Skybite, but Hammer Bite is an exceptional design and a really cool character. This really flexed the muscles. We talked about, the evergreen designs being one reason why you might have, dismissed this show. But when the show got to do its own stuff, oh my god, does it look so good. There's some, similar to Clobber, they do some really cool original work in this series, and some designs I would love to see again. This guy just looks incredible. He looks incredible. I want to see him come back at some point. I'm never going to get it. Never going to get it. But you know what? We had Hammer Bite for a brief moment, and I will accept it for what it is. I just like the Guardian aspect of him, too. Like that, all that kind of works for me. Really wish I'd seen more of him, though. The new concept that I did like, that we saw quite a bit of, Megatron X. Now, there is a Megatron X prior, but that is in the Transmetals video game, and we don't really talk about that one. This one we can talk about all the time. So, modern Transformer fiction between Optimus Prime and Megatron has them as friends, even brothers early on, and then just a moment of division where they've chose different paths, and thus the war continues. However, when it comes, or in some cases begins, but in this case, Megatron X is from a divergent timeline, where instead of just parting ways, just no longer friends, this one is a little bit more active. Seeing that Optimus Prime is going to be a thorn in his side forever, instead of just walking away from each other in their last moment as friends, he just plain out shoots Prime point blank. That's one way to do it. And then he takes the Matrix for himself. This is the first show that actually showed Megatron obtaining and using the Matrix. And when done properly, oh, does it make him a menacing villain. This is a far more ruthless and more powerful Megatron than we had usually seen. And the fact that he can wield the Matrix's abilities, that again makes him a far bigger threat than Megatrons we had seen prior. It was a all Cybertronians on deck, I don't care what your allegiance is, kind of villain. And they did a good job with it. He was a very suitable villain toward the end of the series. But, as you heard me allude multiple times, it's not the one that stands out the most. We have to talk Quintessons for that. Suffice to say, the Quintesson arc in this series is amazing. We go from a Matrix-style apocalypse where only a few survived to an all-out war between Autobot, Decepticon, and the Quintessons. It's a brilliant storyline. And again, told in a very quick pace because of those 11-minute run times. And a lot of characters in the show get to shine as a result. You get to see Hot Rod and Soundwave actually making friends with each other. You get to see Perceptor kind of struggling along, to try to organize what's happening. You have Dead End. There's a new version of Dead End who works out really well as a character. Clobber, who comes into her own, and then just like, you watch them go from that, like, it's only Hot Rod left on the planet to just slowly building up this resistance force and actually retaking the planet. It's a huge heroic moment, especially for, like Hot Rod himself, who basically saved all of Transformers in this and did so in a way that didn't leave Optimus Prime dead, which is always a plus. I love the Quintesson arc. I absolutely love the Quintesson arc in this series, and again, I love Quintessons in general, especially when they're used well, and this show did them very, very well. So, there's my case. Is it a flawless show? Absolutely not. There are some grievances I have with it, especially in the earlier seasons where things are kind of slow, but frankly, there's a lot that is worth it. I think I normally am like, this should be working right from the get-go. If it's good later on, why wasn't it good at first? Why should I be slogging through something? But slog is not the right word, because the first episodes are still enjoyable. They're just slower paced. That's it. And they tell more familiar Transformer stories. Also, for those who are annoyed by Transformer shows that deal with the human antics that you are not a fan of, I know you Miko haters are out there. There's no humans in the show. None. It's all robots, even when they're on Earth. All robots. So for that alone, I feel like some people should have picked up on the show that didn't. So that's my take. That is my thoughts on Cyberverse. I love this show a lot more than I ever expected to. And it's one that I can easily pop on if I just want like a quick little burst of Transformer fun. At some point, I need to sit down and just like rewatch the entire Quintesson arc, because it is just that solid. I would like to rewatch it at some point. But that's for another day when I actually have free time. That's funny. But that's what I have for you today. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Go check out this show if you hadn't already. It's absolutely worth it. And as always, I will see you next time.
You've been waiting a long time, haven't you? But the wait's almost over. You're about to meet the brightest star in the universe. We're going to make an impact.